At the southernmost tip of Argentina lies a city nestled between mountains, cold forests, and a channel connected to some of the most treacherous seas on the planet. There, a storm can disrupt roads, flights, and sea crossings. Food travels thousands of kilometers before reaching supermarkets, homes cling to steep hillsides, and winter reduces sunlight to just a few hours. Ushuaia appears like a normal city when viewed from its coastal avenue. It has schools, hospitals, factories, restaurants, residential neighborhoods, and an international airport. However, its functioning depends on a delicate balance between logistics, energy, climate, and isolation. Before becoming a tourist destination, it was the territory of canoe-faring peoples capable of surviving with almost no clothing, the scene of a violent colonization, and the site of a prison designed to confine criminals thousands of kilometers from major urban centers. Today, more than 80,000 people inhabit this corner of the world. Their presence raises a disquieting question. How can a modern city thrive in a place where geography seems designed to prevent it? Ushuaia stretches across a narrow strip of land on the southern coast of Tierra del Fuego's main island. The waters of the Beagle Channel lie before it. Behind it rises the Marshall Range, an extension of the Andes that forms a barrier of mountains, glacial valleys, and forested slopes. This location gives it one of the most recognizable urban landscapes on the planet, but it also limits its growth. The city has little flat land. New neighborhoods climb the slopes, occupy former forested areas, or extend into zones where building streets, water systems, sewers, and power lines requires ever-increasing investment. From the city center, the mountain range appears close. On clear days, the snow-capped peaks, valleys, and masses of subantarctic forest are visible. Visual distance is deceptive. Conditions change rapidly with increasing altitude. A hike that begins in sunshine can continue in rain, sleet, fog, or strong gusts of wind. The explanation lies in Tierra del Fuego's geographical location. The region lies within the southern hemisphere's westerly wind belt, where enormous air masses circulate around the planet with few continents able to stop them. These currents accumulate moisture over the Pacific Ocean and collide with the mountain range, producing cloud cover, precipitation, and frequent weather changes. Ushuaia has a cold, oceanic climate. Temperatures show less variation between summer and winter than in many continental cities, but remain low for most of the year. Summers offer long days and moderate temperatures. Winters bring snow, ice, slippery surfaces, and prolonged periods with the thermometer hovering around freezing. The southern summer lacks the characteristic warmth of other latitudes. A mild afternoon can reach pleasant temperatures, although the wind quickly reduces the perceived temperature. Even in January, cold days, persistent rain, and sudden drops in temperature are common. Winter completely transforms the urban rhythm. Near the June solstice, sunrise is late, and sunset occurs shortly after 5 in the evening. The city experiences short days for several weeks, as the mountains block some of the sunlight when the sun remains low on the horizon. The prolonged darkness affects transportation, social life, and mood. Residents leave their homes before dawn and return after dark. Snowfall covers signs, sidewalks, and cars. Layers of ice make some slopes treacherous, especially during freeze-thaw cycles. Keeping the streets open requires a constant operation. Snowplows, trucks, and municipal crews work through the early morning hours. Residents clear snow from driveways and roofs, fit appropriate tires, and learn to drive on slippery surfaces. In higher elevations, the wind redistributes the snow, creating uneven accumulations. One street may appear clear while another, just a few blocks up, is partially blocked. The topography produces small microclimates. The coast, the city center, and the mountain neighborhoods can experience different conditions during the same storm. The architecture reveals the daily struggle against the cold. Many homes utilize lightweight structures, metal cladding, wood, insulating materials, and pitched roofs. Buildings must minimize heat loss and withstand constant humidity, corrosion, snow, and gusts of wind. Heating is a basic necessity for much of the year. A boiler failure, An electrical malfunction or a leak takes on a different kind of severity when temperatures drop. Exposed pipes can freeze, dampness deteriorates walls, and the wind finds any poorly sealed opening. Rapid growth has further complicated this challenge. Ushuaia has ceased to be a small remote settlement and has become a city of tens of thousands of inhabitants. Population growth has, on several occasions, outpaced the rate of housing and infrastructure construction. The scarcity of affordable land and the high cost of construction have driven the emergence of settlements on hillsides and in forested areas. Bringing public services to these locations requires traversing steep, rocky or peaty terrain. Each new house increases the demand for gas, electricity, transportation, and road maintenance. The landscape also holds a silent danger. Many areas of Tierra del Fuego have peat bogs, waterlogged soils where plant matter accumulates for centuries without fully decomposing. These environments store carbon and regulate water, but they are sensitive to drainage, roads, and construction. Poorly planned intervention can alter water flow and destabilize the terrain. The city is also located in a seismic zone. Tierra del Fuego is crossed by the boundary between the South American and Scotia plates. The Magallanes-Fagnano fault runs through the island, a reminder that the apparent solidity of the mountains is temporary on a geological timescale. In 1949, a powerful earthquake struck the Tierra del Fuego region, demonstrating the activity of this system. Despite these conditions, Ushuaia continues to grow. Its population has increased rapidly in recent decades, driven by job opportunities, public sector employment, industry, tourism, and internal migration. The isolation that could have halted its development has instead acted as a powerful magnet. Contradiction defines the city. The territory limits the available space, while the economy attracts new inhabitants. The mountains halt expansion to the north. The channel prevents further growth to the south. The airport occupies a peninsula along the coast. Neighborhoods are compressed within an ever-narrowing corridor. Daily life unfolds within this physical boundary. Almost every direction soon ends at a mountain, a forest, or the water. The city can be explored in a short time, but leaving it by land involves traversing hundreds of kilometers of Patagonia and crossing international borders. In Ushuaia, the sense of distance arises when looking at a map. The city is connected to the rest of the world, although every connection depends on airplanes, extensive highways, border crossings, and maritime routes. Nature has not completely isolated the settlement, it has raised the price of every movement. Ushuaia lacks a direct land connection to the Argentine mainland. The island of Tierra del Fuego is separated from Patagonia by the Strait of Magellan, and the only road route crosses through Chilean territory. A vehicle traveling from Ushuaia to Buenos Aires must first head north on National Route 3. The journey crosses mountains, forests, and steppes until reaching the San Sebastian border crossing. There it leaves Argentina and enters Chile. It then continues along Chilean roads in Tierra del Fuego until reaching the Strait of Magellan. The crossing is made by ferries that transport cars, buses, and trucks. Upon reaching the mainland, the route continues through Chile and finally returns to Argentina via another border crossing. This sequence transforms any land transport into an international operation. Documents, customs controls, border crossing hours, and maritime conditions all play a role in a journey that, in other regions, would depend solely on the condition of a road. Commercial logistics face the same obstacle. A significant portion of the food, construction materials, spare parts, medicines, and consumer goods arrive from production centers located thousands of kilometers to the north. The trucks cross Patagonia over several days. Along the way, they endure crosswinds, low temperatures, long distances between towns, and areas where services are scarce. Then they must cross the border twice and board a ferry. When weather conditions force the suspension of navigation, the system grinds to a halt. Trucks wait at terminals, and delivery times are extended. These disruptions are usually temporary, but they highlight the fragility of a supply chain with few alternatives. Fresh produce presents the greatest challenge. Fruits, vegetables, and dairy products require refrigeration and must arrive before they spoil. Every delay reduces their shelf life. Fuel, wages, insurance, storage, and border crossing costs are all factored into the final price. Isolation also impacts construction. Cement, steel, processed wood, glass, machinery, and specialized components travel enormous distances. A project can be delayed by the absence of a seemingly insignificant part. In a major city, the replacement would arrive in a few hours. In Ushuaia, it might take several days. Maritime transport offers another option, although it depends on port infrastructure, frequency, and planning. The port of Ushuaia serves commercial, tourist, scientific, and strategic functions. During the summer, it receives cruise ships and vessels involved in Antarctic expeditions, in addition to cargo ships and maritime services. The international airport provides the fastest connection to the north. Its runway is located on a peninsula surrounded by the Beagle Channel. From the air, the terminal resembles a platform nestled between water and mountains. Flights reduce thousands of kilometers to just a few hours, but fares, availability, and weather conditions all affect this connection. Snow, wind, visibility, and other operational factors can cause delays. When a flight is cancelled, ground transportation options take several days. This isolation explains why many residents plan trips well in advance. A specialist medical appointment, a bureaucratic procedure, a family visit, or a vacation may require flights, accommodation, and additional expenses. The distance transforms ordinary actions into significant economic decisions. To offset some of these difficulties, the Argentine government established the Tierra del Fuego Tourism Promotion Law 19,640 in 1972. This law created tax and customs benefits designed to stimulate economic activity and settlement in Tierra del Fuego. The regime favored the establishment of industries, particularly plants dedicated to manufacturing or assembling electronic products. Televisions, mobile phones, air conditioning units, and other appliances began to be produced on the island under special tax conditions. The policy transformed the demographics. Thousands of workers arrived from other provinces, attracted by wages, industrial employment, and opportunities for advancement. Ushuaia and Rio Grande grew at an exceptional rate within the Patagonian context. The system produced a paradox. Some industrial goods can benefit from tax advantages, while numerous food products and materials bear high logistical costs. Daily life in Tierra del Fuego is a mix of nominally high salaries, expensive rents, costly transportation, and fluctuating prices. Housing is one of the biggest pressures. The population has grown faster than the housing supply in several periods. Construction costs are higher due to the distance, the climate, and the scarcity of developable land. At the same time, tourism drives short-term rentals that compete with permanent residences. A worker might arrive lured by a higher salary than in their home province, only to discover that a considerable portion disappears on lodging, heating, and food. Prosperity in Tierra del Fuego depends less on how much one earns than on how much it costs to live there. The local economy rests on several pillars. Public sector employment plays a significant role due to its status as the provincial capital. Industry provides both direct and indirect jobs. Tourism contributes hotels, restaurants, transportation, commerce, and excursions. Port activities connect the city to the South Atlantic and Antarctica. This combination means the pace of life shifts with the seasons. During the summer, cruise ships, expeditions, and travelers from numerous countries arrive. The downtown streets fill up, the port's operations increase significantly, and restaurants stay open late, taking advantage of the long daylight hours. In winter, tourism shifts towards the snow, ski resorts, sledding, and icy landscapes. The city needs to maintain services year-round, although the number and profile of visitors fluctuate. The presence of tourists projects an image of adventure. Signs with the phrase, "End of the world," souvenirs, certificates, and photographs transform the isolation into a brand. For those who stay only a few days, the snow and wind are part of the experience. For residents, they are elements that affect schedules, budgets, and health. Life demands planning. Cars require proper maintenance. Families manage heating, insulation, and household reserves. Businesses calculate restocking times. Companies build up inventories because urgent shipments can be slow and expensive. Vulnerability rarely leads to a complete collapse. Ushuaia has supermarkets, warehouses, services, and modern infrastructure. The real problem arises from the accumulation of small difficulties. A cancelled flight, a delayed spare part, a closed road, and a prolonged storm can coincide and disrupt the routines of thousands of people. The city functions thanks to an invisible logistical machine. Every fresh food item, every medicine, and every industrial component is the result of a chain that crosses borders, straits, and thousands of kilometers. The abundance of shops masks this complexity. At the end of the world, a full shelf represents much more than consumption. It represents open roads, operating ferries, available fuel, functioning customs, and drivers who have crossed one of the least populated regions of the continent. Before the avenues, hotels, and tourist boats, Ushuaia was a territory inhabited by indigenous peoples adapted to the subantarctic environment. Among them were the Yámana, also known as Yagan, canoe-faring communities who travelled the channels of the southernmost tip of the continent for millennia. Their world revolved around the sea. Canoes allowed them to transport families, tools, and fire between islands. Their diet included shellfish, fish, birds, and marine mammals. The coasts preserve large accumulations of shells known as shell middens, archaeological traces of ancient campsites. The Yámana's scant clothing surprised European navigators. Their adaptation depended on several factors, including an active lifestyle, permanent fires, temporary shelters, a diet rich in fat, and the use of oily substances on their skin. The fires travelled inside the canoes, on a base protected with earth, sand, or clay. Maintaining the fire was essential in a humid environment where starting one from scratch could be difficult. The plumes of smoke seen from the sea helped solidify the name Tierra del Fuego, Land of Fire. The arrival of Europeans rapidly altered this system. Infectious diseases, violence, displacement, economic exploitation, and cultural transformations drastically reduced the indigenous populations. Religious missions concentrated nomadic groups in permanent settlements, modifying their diet, mobility, and methods of protection from the climate. At the end of the 19th century, Argentina sought to consolidate its presence in the region. On October 12, 1884, a sub-prefecture was established next to the existing Anglican mission. This date became associated with the official founding of Ushuaia. The settlement remained tiny. Distance and climate made it difficult to attract residents. The national government found a solution inspired by other remote territories, establishing a penal colony. The first prison projects appeared at the end of the 19th century. Over time, a prison was developed for repeat offenders and convicts considered dangerous. Geographic isolation acted as a natural barrier. Construction of the main building began at the beginning of the 20th century. The prisoners themselves participated in the work. The complex adopted a radial design with several pavilions radiating from a central surveillance area. The cells were lined up along cold, austere corridors. The prison had a decisive influence on the city. Inmates manufactured materials, erected buildings, opened roads, built infrastructure, and performed essential tasks. The prison was not a secondary element of Ushuaia. For decades, it constituted its main economic and employment engine. One of the most urgent needs was firewood. Heating and cooking depended on large quantities of wood. The nearby forests were progressively exploited, and the work crews had to venture deeper and deeper into the territory. A narrow-gauge railway was built to transport prisoners and logs. Small trains departed from the prison and travelled toward the Pipo River Valley. The inmates worked in damp, cold, and physically exhausting conditions. The railway acquired the nickname prison train. Its cars transported men, tools and timber across a region where escape offered little chance of survival. The sea closed off the south. Mountains and forests blocked the north. Low temperatures, rain, and the absence of towns turned any escape into a desperate march. The prison used the geography as an extension of its walls. Among its inmates were common criminals, notorious murderers, and political prisoners sent during different administrations. The later image of the prison blended documented cases with legends. Stories of punishment, isolation, and brutality circulated for decades and fueled Ushuaia's reputation as the Argentine Siberia. Life for the guards and their families was no easy task either. The staff had to remain in a small community, far from major urban centers and dependent on ships for mail, supplies, and news. The prison generated an entire society around it. Workshops, warehouses, housing, services, and administrative activities grew to support it. The modern city began to take shape in the shadow of the pavilions. In 1947, the national government ordered the prison closed. The building was taken over by the Argentine Navy and repurposed. Decades later, part of the complex was transformed into a museum. Today, the former prison is one of Ushuaia's main historical attractions. Its corridors allow visitors to see cells, tools, photographs, and artifacts from prison life. Tourism has transformed a place of punishment into a memorial. The railway also returned in a new form. The current end of the World Train travels along part of the old route and transports visitors to Tierra del Fuego National Park. Tourist locomotives pass through forests, rivers, and areas where signs of logging are still visible. The transition is unsettling. The places where prisoners worked under constant surveillance are now part of a recreational experience. Snow, trees, and mountains soften the landscape, though history remains behind every journey. After the prison's closure, Ushuaia needed a new reason to exist and grow. The naval base, the public administration, and population policies sustained the city. Later, the industrialization program of 1972 spurred a much larger expansion. The new inhabitants arrived voluntarily but shared some challenges with those who had lived there before. Distance remained a factor. The weather continued to dictate schedules and movements. Geography kept the city within narrow limits. The difference lay in the promise. Modern workers arrived, drawn by jobs, wages, and opportunities for advancement. Many planned to stay a few years and return north with savings. Some achieved this goal. Others started families and settled permanently. This migrant population forged a distinct identity. A large portion of the inhabitants were born outside the province. The customs, accents, and traditions of different Argentine regions blended in rapidly developed neighborhoods. A sense of belonging to Tierra del Fuego ceased to depend solely on birthplace. It began to be linked to the shared experience of enduring winters, traveling long distances, and adapting to a city where almost everyone had come from elsewhere. The city's history as a prison offers a powerful metaphor, although the current reality is more complex. Ushuaia is no longer a natural prison. It boasts daily flights, digital communications, universities, modern services, and a globally connected economy. However, the surrounding environment continues to serve as a reminder that any connection can be severed. Freedom of movement depends on schedules, weather, and money. A person can communicate instantly with any place on the planet and at the same time need several days to reach it by land. The city ends with surprising speed. Beyond the last neighborhoods, forests, peat bogs, mountains, and waterways appear. This proximity to relatively undisturbed environments is one of Ushuaia's greatest attractions, and, at the same time, a constant source of risk. The Fuegian forest is dominated by species of the Nothofagus genus, such as Lenga, Gindo, and Nyere. These trees withstand low temperatures, poor soils, strong winds, and short growing seasons. In the most exposed areas, specimens deformed by gusts of wind appear. Their trunks and branches grow at an angle, creating what are known as flag trees. Their shape records the prevailing wind direction for decades. The forests recover slowly. The cold limits biological activity and reduces the rate of growth. An intervention capable of destroying trees in a few days can take decades or centuries to repair. This balance was profoundly disrupted in 1946, when 20 Canadian beavers were released in Tierra del Fuego with the intention of establishing a fur industry. The project failed economically, but the animals found a favorable environment and almost no predators capable of controlling their expansion. Beavers are ecosystem engineers. They cut down trees, block streams, and build dams that modify water flow. In North America, numerous plant species evolved alongside them and exhibit some capacity for regrowth. The Fujian forests lack this shared history. When a beaver floods a section of forest, the roots remain underwater and the trees die. The landscape transforms into a wetland covered with grey trunks. If the dam breaks or the animal leaves, the land can become a wet meadow distinct from the original forest. The invasion has spread throughout the archipelago. Scientific research has recorded more than 200,000 dams and tens of thousands of hectares affected. Beavers have crossed channels and occupied islands, valleys, and remote watersheds. The problem goes beyond the loss of trees. The dams alter sediments, nutrients, water temperature, and aquatic communities. They also affect roads, culverts, agricultural areas, and infrastructure. Argentina and Chile have developed joint control strategies. The scale of the territory complicates any attempt at eradication. Many areas lack roads and can only be reached on foot, by helicopter, or by boat. Removing animals from a watershed does not guarantee success either. If individuals remain in nearby areas, they can return and rebuild the dams. The work requires prolonged monitoring, trained personnel, and international coordination. The beaver invasion reveals the fragility of southern ecosystems. 20 animals released for commercial purposes altered an entire region. The human experiment lasted only an instant. Its consequences continue 8 decades later. The Beagle Channel presents another dimension of Tierra del Fuego's natural world. Its waters connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans through a network of channels and islands. The landscape appears protected when viewed from the shore, although navigation requires knowledge of currents, wind, tides, and weather changes. The water temperature remains low year-round. An accidental fall can cause thermal shock, uncontrolled breathing, and rapid loss of motor skills. The proximity to the shore offers a false sense of security. The channel is home to seabirds, sea lions, and cetaceans that appear seasonally or occasionally. The nearby islets serve as resting and breeding grounds. Tourist excursions navigate among wildlife colonies and pass by the Les Éclaireurs lighthouse, which has become one of Ushuaia's symbols. These waters are also the gateway to Antarctica. A significant portion of global Antarctic tourism uses the port of Ushuaia. During the summer, expedition ships embark passengers, food, fuel, and equipment before heading towards the Drake Passage. The journey to the Antarctic Peninsula can take around 2 days, depending on the ship and sea conditions. The Drake Passage is famous for its strong winds and large waves. There, masses of water and atmospheric circulation converge around the White Continent. Antarctic activity provides employment and international visibility. Hotels, agencies, maritime suppliers, transport companies, and shops participate in an industry based on its geographic location. The city is thus connected to one of the most remote territories on the planet. Scientists, crew members, and tourists pass through its streets before embarking. Specialized teams arrive from different countries and converge on the port. This influx also creates pressure. Cruise ships temporarily multiply the number of people in the city center. The infrastructure must manage waste, fuel, traffic, and services. The challenge lies in generating economic benefits without degrading the landscape that attracts visitors. Tourism sells a carefully presented version of the end of the world. The snow, the mountains, and the channel form a setting for adventure. Shops offer souvenirs featuring penguins, lighthouses, maps, and coordinates. The city has turned its extreme location into a commercial asset. Behind this image, however, structural challenges persist. Urban growth encroaches on forests and watersheds. Energy demand is increasing. Waste must be managed within a limited area. Wastewater and real estate expansion require infrastructure capable of protecting the canal. Climate change adds new uncertainties. Glacial retreat, altered precipitation patterns, and variations in snow cover can disrupt water supplies, winter tourism, and ecosystems. The Marshall Glacier, visible from the city, has experienced a notable retreat. Its reduction is a local indicator of global processes. The mountain remains, but the ice that defined its appearance for generations occupies less and less space. Decreased snow cover does not eliminate winter hazards. It can lead to more frequent cycles of rain, thaw, and refreeze. Ice on streets and sidewalks can become more problematic than a stable layer of snow. The Fuegian landscape offers few easy answers. The city depends on snow tourism, while the climate is changing. It needs new housing, even though forests and peatlands perform essential environmental functions. It requires better connectivity, but every infrastructure project fragments ecosystems. Modern survival is no longer just about enduring the cold. It's about managing contradictions. Ushuaia needs to grow without destroying what sustains its economy and its identity. The Yámana people lived for millennia using lightweight shelters, canoes, and local resources. The modern city uses gas, electricity, highways, flights, and global supply chains. Its technological capacity seems vastly superior, but it also creates a much greater dependency. A power outage affects thousands of homes simultaneously. A logistical failure impacts supermarkets and factories. A port problem disrupts fishing expeditions and cruises. Complexity provides convenience and, at the same time, generates new vulnerabilities. Ushuaia's true strangeness lies in this coexistence. An industrial and tourist city operates facing subantarctic waters, plains land beside wind-shaped forests, ships equipped with modern technology set sail for an ice-covered continent. Beavers introduced by humans reshape entire valleys without regard for political boundaries. Life seems impossible because every urban system struggles against a geographical condition. Heating battles the cold. Highways struggle with distance. Housing struggles with slopes. Ports struggle with wind. Planning struggles with growth. Yet, the city endures. Its existence demonstrates that impossibility depends on the amount of energy, organization, and resources that a society is willing to invest to sustain a settlement.